Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is I, Tate. I'm joined today by George, and we are talking more Doctor Who. We have had the second special from this 14th Doctor run air today in the UK and worldwide on Disney+. We're going to be talking about it, and we're going to be talking about the Wild Blue Yonder. What an interesting, weird episode. What an interesting, weird week between the two different episodes. We want to hear your thoughts on it. We absolutely want to hear your thoughts on it. So please comment below on your thoughts on the episode, because this is creating a massive debate online. It seems like a lot of people are split down the middle. We're going to be chatting all about it. We're going to be going through all of the details from it. But of course, we want to create a conversation. So we want to hear your thoughts on Wild Blue Yonder down in the comments as well. Before we go into socials and various other things, George, how are we doing today?
I'm doing well. I've seen the episodes. It's been a long, busy day, but I got to watch it on time this week, which I didn't get to do last week. So, yeah, we'll be talking. And obviously with I don't say limited Doctor Who knowledge, but as someone that obviously hasn't watched it properly in a long time, that kind of makes today's episode more curious because I'm probably asking a lot of questions if there's been similar episodes, and especially going back through history. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I think that's the understatement of the year because it was my lack of Doctor Who knowledge. This was the episode that everybody I know that watches Doctor Who was saying, episode 2 is the one. This is the one that no one knows what's going to happen. This is the one. It's all going to happen. Blah, 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 blah. And I'll immediately say it strikes. I don't follow Doctor Who fandom. I can't tell you what they're saying on Twitter. I can't tell you what they're saying anywhere else. But I'd imagine we have a scenario where a lot of people probably had a lot of thoughts in their head about what would happen. And no one would have predicted the episode we just had. And I'd imagine there's also going to be a lot of people with fair criticism, with fair praise. And no doubt there'll be that standard internet reaction of, this wasn't how I planned it in my head, therefore it's terrible. Because every franchise just ends up doing that, don't they? So, yeah, I'm curious to know what people think. Genuinely curious, not me saying it for the sake of saying it. Like, I am, yeah.
Well, from kind of judging from early internet reactions, it is properly dividing people's opinions, like completely. A lot of people are saying this is fantastic, atmospheric, it's a new monster, it's very cool because it goes in a different direction. It's not what we expected and it pleasantly surprised people. And a lot of people have similar issues to what I have. I liked this episode, I really did. Almost loved it. I liked it a lot. But there are a few issues I definitely have with this episode, and we'll be talking about those issues a little bit later on. Before we go into that, we will plug our socials very, very quickly. So go and follow us on social media. We are, of course, going to be going live with the final episode of these specials next Saturday at 9 p.m. For me, it's going to be 10 p.m. because I'm leaving for Austria tomorrow. So I will be in a different time zone. But there you go. That's what the time is in Europe if you're watching in Europe. But yes, please go and follow us on our link tree in the description, and also go onto our Redbubble store as well to pick up some certain things. Okay, let's go into it. To start off with, we're going to talk a little bit about last week and kind of how that episode has settled, because I think people have been given time to go over and watch it again. I have watched it again. I really enjoyed it on second viewing. It feels like a proper kind of old school Russell T Davies adventure. It's a proper nostalgia bait without really being one. But it absolutely hooked me in and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think everyone has settled down on it being quite a fun episode. I'm still not a fan of the ending. And I know a lot of people have raised their criticisms online of the ending. There have also been a lot of people in the Doctor Who community, and this is always the thing with the Doctor Who community, who have completely just gone on weird and just off the books kind of rants online. And I mean, you'll always get those kind of different areas of the community talking about things in different ways. But some of the criticism is very fair and some of the criticism is just absolutely wrong. And I'll go ahead and say it straight away. Those people are not really welcome in the Doctor Who community. And, you know, if you can't accept, you know, what is happening in Doctor Who and what is happening with this TV show that has always been political, I think there is a video out there which you can go and watch, which is the Doctor being political for an hour straight. And it goes all the way back to the first Doctor. Then, do you know what? This show isn't for you. And you can go and terrorize another fan base.
Did you see the great Bob Iger quote from this week where he says that audiences don't want films with messages in? And the top 2 highest grossing films this year is one about the nuclear bomb and the moral complicities around nuclear weapons, and the other one being about the experience of being a woman. But apparently,
Yeah.
audience don't want that. He said. I read last week was quite not surreal, just stuff you don't want to see on the internet. Is always the case, and it seems to happen in every fandom, in every genre, not just film or TV, sport, everything. So that's embarrassing to see some overreactions. As I said, valid criticism episode, go for it fully. But some of it's been insane, and that makes me more not curious about criticism for this. But I don't know how people will react to this episode today. I'll just initially say last week, the more I thought about last week's episode, as you said, it's like a nostalgic episode about actually doing the whole nostalgia trip that we went back to 15 years ago. We've got the same Doctor, the companion. We're doing an intro to it. We're on an adventure. It's not part of a overarching story, ... yet. But it was fun. And if you're bringing in that old audience, then you're going to get that momentum, nostalgia. And kind of what I said last week, and I compared it to The Force Awakens and Last Jedi. You do your Force Awakens, you bring everyone back in, then you need to follow up and do something completely out there, something different. Maybe, I didn't say controversial, but you don't do the exact same thing twice. You try and go to the opposite ways. And I would definitely say this episode delivered with that respect. And since Last Jedi, there seems to be a lot of people had it predetermined in their head how they thought it was going to go. So I thought it was interesting. Now, my initial thoughts on this episode, before we talk about a couple of things we didn't speak about last week, but I'm mixed on this at the moment, but I'm very, very, very conscious that it aired literally less than 2 hours ago. So I need to have a think. I'm not going to rewatch it. I'm just going to be as blunt as that. That doesn't mean I dislike it. I'm not going to be rewatching Doctor episodes like I have with other stuff. The family were obviously watching it as well. So it's one that I think, like a lot of long-running TV shows, will be an episode that divides people, and I think they'll be split two camps. Very loved it, extremely, very high. Others, what the else going on? What is this? And again, I don't really fit in either of those. I'm sort of in the middle. Sorry.
No, that's absolutely fair. And do you know what? On this channel, and even people at home, we love a debate, and it's always nice to kind of. It's good to have discussions where both of you are on the same page, but it's also good to hear different people's opinions and kind of figure out kind of somewhere in between that we can find a good middle ground on as far as this episode's concerned. Now, last week we didn't talk about a few things. First of all, massive omission. There is a new title intro sequence, which I'll be perfectly honest, I'm not a fan of. And the only reason why I'm not a fan of it is because I absolutely adore, Russell T Davis's original titles, or the sequence that came with his original run. I've actually enjoyed other title sequences in between then, particularly Capaldi's sequence, bringing back, the face coming into the title sequence. Matt Smith's ones were pretty fun as well, with kind of going through the thunderstorm. Even Jodie Whittaker's were quite kind of ethereal and pulsating and very interesting. With these ones, it feels very dynamic and action-packed and almost like kind of third person. You're not like following the TARDIS. It feels like we're almost observing the TARDIS instead. And that's not kind of what I want to see from a Doctor intro. I want to be taken on the journey, not watching the journey from afar. And that's just kind of the vibe that I felt from it.
I spoke last week about I discovered that they put Murray Gold's soundtrack on Spotify, and I've been listening to that a good chunk. There's some really, really good songs in there. I saw a tweet and I can't unhear it, but this is actually, I believe, intentional to the soundtrack, and I'm sure details will come out in the coming weeks, months, maybe. There's like heavy breathing over the top of the score. I don't know if you've noticed this on the main theme, but in the credits, if you look at the credits of the episode, there is definitely like a breathing thing. The debate on Twitter that I did see was, is this intentional versus is this dreadful music? Something as black and white as that everyone can notice, it's intentional. So
yeah,
my headspace, I don't know if this is going to be the new sequence moving forward of Shooty. Again, we're in this like mini Realma special, so I'm curious. I don't really have an opinion on I don't want to be this like nostalgic kid where, you see me talk about Spider-Man, right? Maguire, you see me talk about the Star Wars prequels. It's the things I grew up with, the early to mid 2000s, and what was a big part of that. What started when Star Wars finished? Doctor Who. I did tweet the Toys R Us picture I mentioned then. I don't mind the title sequence. I didn't even know Capaldi had his face in it. I'm sort of curious now.
Yeah, that's his eyebrows mainly. His right, eyebrows. Okay. Yeah.
So, and this is it. So I'm so behind in terms of knowledge that I think it's fine. And again, in my head, I just can't. I spent so many years of my life with that original. I say original theme. It's technically like 42 years into Doctor Who or whatever. So it's not even the original theme, is it? So I'm okay with it. Listen, the title sequence. It's not hard. I don't need to have. I don't need to have it go like Game of Thrones or Daredevil or something like that. Just as long as I can know and tell it's Doctor Who, I'm absolutely fine with it, and I'm fine with it. And I'm curious with Shooty because I've got no idea what's going to happen moving forward. With all this, and
we know it's his TARDIS now. 100% is his TARDIS.
Yeah.
We've now got images of him in the TARDIS at the end of the episode, or the next time on Doctor Who bit, which was definitely.
I didn't get to that bit. Sorry.
There you go. And Murray Gold, the way he's been able to kind of transform the score over the years, he was heavily missed when he wasn't in Doctor Who, and now that he's back, it is once again fantastic. And we'll talk about the music a little bit later on in the episode, but the music was a very, very strong element of this episode, and the score is fantastic. And I do want to go back and actually listen to the score of this episode again, as it created the atmosphere for kind of the setting of the episode. Now, very, very rarely we get a Doctor Who cold open. I wonder if this is going to be a theme going forwards, because normally with Doctor Who, it links to the episode, and this time it didn't. I think there was only one thing where the word Mavity was mentioned later on in the episode. Apart from that, this is a complete cold open, which is very interesting for Doctor Who. Very rarely done. I think it may have been done before at some stage. But we just get to see kind of like a mini adventure kind of thing of them going back through time and space, which I guess, is fun and unique. However, it's already causing controversy to cast, a mixed race man in Isaac Newton's role. I do want to point out that Nathaniel Curtis has worked with Russell T Davies before in It's a Sin. He's not a complete newcomer to the game. Once again, it's one of those where it's like, look, you're watching the TV show about a man in a blue box going through space and time and going through history and meeting aliens and stuff like that. And you're picking out the tiniest element of an episode that is literally just a joke in the end. It's just a pun at the end of the sequence. It's a nice, fun adventure. It feels like people aren't really having fun with that and taking it almost too seriously. I just wanted to kind of hear your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, This goes down to, again, my lack of knowledge heading into the episode. This was the episode they spoke about, right? Like, this is going to be dark, this is going to be this is going to be that, the big of that. To then get a light-hearted cold open, I think immediately would have been like, not a put-off as such, but it would have been something for, how would I say, like, oh, this isn't what I thought immediately. And then, obviously, the fact it has no bearing on the story, because I did wonder, I was like, oh, maybe it will come back into it at the end of the episode. Maybe it could come into it next week still. I thought, oh, is the history going to change because of this Apple moment? As you said, it was just a cold open. I'll be honest, I didn't care for it. I
didn't care for it either, but I feel like it shouldn't receive the hate that it's getting.
No. And again, I've not watched... is it called Doctor Who Confidential? I know they've changed the name.
Doctor Who. It's now called Doctor Who Unleashed.
Okay, sorry. I'm never going to remember that because I think of the Force Unleashed. But I am curious. Again, I don't want to sit and say, "Oh, I can't." I said almost I can't wait to hear what people say. I could assume what people were going to say. I do think it's tricky when we have these types of things. That I think we've had a series recently with what's her name, Jada Pinkett Smith, and I believe there was some race swapping, and it kicked off big time. And there was a BBC series recently, and a lot of attention gets put on those sorts of things. There's been varying ones over the years. Horrible Histories had something recently. I've never watched Horrible Histories. To me, that was a magazine series my sister collected growing up that you got cool cards with. And now it's a film and series. But yes, I'll be completely honest. My thoughts on stuff like that is it's fictional, so I don't really care. But I genuinely do understand criticisms of race swapping real life figures. I couldn't give a shit about a comic book character or a fictional character. So it's a 2-minute cold open. So, and again, obviously no hate wish on the actor. But I am, again, I don't want to sit and say Rusty Davies has caused controversy. I don't want to say that at all. Obviously, we've had the stuff recently with Jeremy Davros, which again, I kind of agree with his wording and what he said and what he's gone to do. And I think Russell T Davies is sitting in this George Lucas role now, where he's like, I'm the showrunner, so I'll do what I want, and that's how this is going. I don't mind that.
Yeah,
and it's weird. I can just. It feels like I'm not saying the same thing over, but it's like I've witnessed and seen this with Star Wars so many times, and it's really horrible. Not like I'm over it, but it's like I'm going to read up a load of shit and I'm going to go on Twitter to see people arguing. I don't want to sit here and say I'm tired of it, because I am, but you should always, you don't just let things like that happen. So if there's any abuse, that's just ridiculous and over the top. But I understand why people do dislike race swapping real life stuff, only on the logistical reality of real life too, because one of the most famous, well, he's not fictional, but some might say that, but I don't want to get in trouble. Jesus wasn't white. There's the most obvious one that's never spoken about. So that's all I'm going to say on that, and swiftly move on, because it's always tricky doing these live. Yes. Wild Blue Yonder, the Tardis, explosions, coffee.
Yes, Wild Blue Yonder, TARDIS explosions, coffee. So the actual plot for Wild Blue Yonder, according to IMDb, because this episode is so under wraps, the TARDIS takes the Doctor and Donna to the furthest edge of the universe. To escape, they must face a most desperate fight for their lives, with the fate of the universe at stake. That kind of covers it. Do you know, for an episode that was so under wraps, that kind of covers what they're dealing with in the episode. And we'll briefly go over it. I mean, this is a spoiler discussion. Of course it is. We wouldn't be able to talk about this without it being a spoiler discussion. But they end up on a interesting-looking spaceship. The only thing they see on the spaceship is a weird little robot that's kind of, stood still. Sometimes the things on the spaceship move. Sometimes they hear a clank. And the TARDIS runs away because of something so bad on there that it needs to just get out. Which is great, because Doctor Who stories are fun and all that when the Doctor has the TARDIS and the Doctor has a sonic screwdriver. But Doctor Who stories are even better when the Doctor has neither of those things and he is backed into a corner, or she is backed into a corner. And this is an episode where that happens. And it means that for the entire episode, you are leaning on the acting performances of David Tennant and Catherine Tate, and they do a fantastic job in this episode. And, they just kind of carry the story, because, guess what? They're playing two different characters themselves, and I don't even think there's an alien name for it. They don't have a name for the aliens in this episode.
Thank God, because I was like, have I missed something? And I don't want to come across really thick, but I believe it's a nameless enemy, which I like that too. Not everything needs a name. And I've always said that about a lot of things in media, especially when they're taking the identity. Their goal is to assume the identity of the Doctor and Donna. So if there was some massive evil villain monologue about, we've come from this to do this and we are this, it just isn't needed. It made it more interesting that we don't know anything about them except who they were trying to resemble. And I think that's one of the biggest strengths of the episode, straight away.
I've seen multiple people online calling this episode a few different things. So one person said it's like the campiest version of The Thing possible, which I can completely understand. It's kind of, for me, if I'm doing it in Doctor Who terms, it is Midnight, which was the episode where the Doctor was stranded on a planet on a kind of tourist spaceship, and there's a mimic-based alien on there stealing people's identities. The Rebel Flesh and Almost Human double bill, which has very similar CGI effects, actually, which we're going to talk about in a minute as well. It feels like a combination of those two. Now, Midnight is heralded as one of kind of the best Doctor Who stories out there. Solo kind of standard episode, but really eerie, unnerving, and kind of, holds you in place the entire episode. Whereas Almost Human Rebel Flesh, some people like it, some people don't. So it's kind of a mix of those two. And I can completely understand if you put those two things together, you don't end up with an episode just like this. The plot kind of follows in the way of, like, they're stuck on the ship, they need to get out, they need to kind of solve the mystery of what all the noises are, they need to solve the mystery of kind of, where the captain's gone. And then they're kind of faced off against themselves. And copies of themselves that can't quite fully copy them completely. And they're trying to learn them, and their arms are too big. Their faces contort, their eyes contort, and stuff like that. And you do get some very, very goofy CGI in here. And this is where my biggest issue with the episode is you have, or you reportedly have, a Disney level budget. The entire ship is CGI'd, apart from the control room and a couple of the vent rooms. The monsters themselves are goofy CGI, but it looks like reused CGI from the Almost Human Rebel Flesh episode. So it's not like it's groundbreaking in any way, shape, or form. If you remove that goofy element of the episode, this episode becomes, I personally think, one of the creepiest, eeriest, and possibly one of the best episodes in the new run. But that goofiness almost holds it back. And sometimes Doctor Who gets away with being goofy. So the practical elements of this episode, the giant arms, the contortion of kind of walking backwards and stuff like that, that works. That's okay. That makes you feel like you're watching somewhere between Classic Who and New Who. It works in that way. But the kind of like animalistic running and the kind of face droop Snapchat filter or whatever it is that is in this episode really takes you out of the adventure because it doesn't quite fit. It's not uncanny as in so close to human that it just looks wrong. It's just straight up goofy and really takes you out of it. And for the rest of the episode to actually have that eerie atmosphere, that really cool vibe, and really delve into some quite dark areas as far as, you know, characters past, addressing some much needed things that needed addressing, like the timeless children and the flux, which, you know, thinking back on kind of, you know, my criticism of that and the fact that they really address it in this episode, I really enjoyed. But that balanced off against kind of the Snapchat, Instagram kind of stuff. I don't like it. And it's so close to being really, really good. But those things completely take me out of the experience.
Yeah. Do you remember Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the Tim Burton one?
Yes.
And they're walking to the... oh, God. They're walking through the corridor when they first get in the factory, and the corridor gets smaller. It was like that, but CGI. It's tricky with this because I love the concept of the villain, but I'm kind of with you that they've almost nailed it. And I love the whole twist dynamic of like they're not sort of making us out to be like idiots, the audience, red room, blue room, to know these different stories, but they're not making it as obvious as it can be. There'll be people watching who don't understand that, and I like that. You have to think, okay, who am I with? Which one am I with? And I like that they were questioning us as audience members, that we were not just paying attention, but listening to the dialogue very carefully. And then the whole, like, my arms are too big. I did sort of sit there in my head and think, let's get a David Tennant, Mr. Fantastic rumor going. You know, everyone's been linked to it at this rate. But I'm kind of with you that, and I get, you know, I can't talk about the history of Who and whatnot, but the visual effects is something for me. As an outsider, this is a fair way, and this might upset some Doctor Who fans, but my biggest issue is when I look back at Doctor Who stuff is I'm not a snob. Oh, it's got to look great. And I've always looked at Doctor Who as saying that, you know, they don't have the budget. Look at the quality of the storytelling compared to what they're able to do with that budget, etc., etc. People always mock like the Absorbal off, which I always used to love when I was younger. It's such a weird episode, but the whole backstory that it was a kid that drew the
people have started liking it again.
I never disliked it.
It goes through cycles, you know.
It was the first ever time I heard oh god,
Mr. Blue Sky.
Yeah, that's the first ever time I heard Mr. Blue Sky in my life. And Peter Kay, again, I remember the Blue Peter episode when they put the kid on that designed it, and people, it's got the guy that was from, oh dear me, there's a Sky drama in the late noughties with the Master was on. I don't know what was it called, but anyway, and it also had Moaning Myrtle. So all this stuff, and it was one of those episodes where the Doctor appears at the end, like the Absorb. Don't know why I'm talking about the Absorb. I just can't get the image out of my head.
Well, it's I understand where you're coming from, because it's different areas of Doctor Who that have had different levels of CGI, and sometimes it's pulled off and it can kind of work, and you look back on it and go, well, that was the budget for the time. But I feel like now, especially after their comments off the last episode, they have no excuse.
And I'll say this, it's really something for me, and I think I said this last week, I do not expect Doctor Who to like The Mandalorian. I do not expect it to like Andor. I don't expect it to like, I don't know what's the highest one, like Game of Thrones, you know, we just had the trailer of House Dragon, which I can't wait for.
Yeah.
I don't expect Doctor Who to look like that. But in my head, and maybe this is really unfair, and I don't mean to sound like I'm moaning, if we've heard nothing but stories about the incredible new budget for a very long time now, since Disney came in. Now, I can excuse it's the second episode. Maybe this series will look amazing. I had a couple of issues, and we spoke last week how amazing some of that looked with the sonic screwdriver things and the types of, but that ship design. If you can't, I'm not doing the whole, if you can't do it practical, don't do it. No, because it's TV, it's a different budget system. But I did wonder, like, when you were on a practical set, it looked great on this episode. When they were in the rent rooms, when they were in the control panel, you could see that was the actors in the sets. When the floor was very noticeably not a set, the surrounding room was very noticeably. I'll compare it to something, and this is actually an unfair comparison. It looked like the communities from Attack of the Clones, but worse. And I've gone on record to say why Attack of the Clones hasn't aged well. VFX, very much the beginning of the era, shooting digital when digital was new. All these other varying reasons. I didn't accept that in 2023, and certainly after a series that's told everybody how much money they've got, as you said a week ago on the behind the scenes series, saying we've got 15 times the budget. Because I did sit there thinking, now maybe this is nostalgia. That Space Titanic episode looked better. Now,
it did.
Maybe it's aged horribly, and that's me. But I was a little bit disappointed by that, and I actually was taken out of the episode quite frequently by this is on the robot. I loved the robot design, and as I said, some of the practical stuff was so cool, but I was so out of it at times. And again, I don't know the specifics. I don't know if maybe episode 3 is going to look the best thing ever, and it'll explain why 2 maybe they put the budgets different directions. But it's frustrating, and as I said, I don't know the ins and outs, and I don't want to upset Dr. Who by just moaning. But
no,
again, last week you had amazing practical effects. You had a good practical effect, and with an episode like this where there's only 2 actors plus a returning face at the end, the budget for this episode is probably higher than others because of the CGI, but in essence, the cost wouldn't have been as much. Was it two practical sets, a green room set, plus the TARDIS?
It was, in the end, it was 3 practical sets, which was the corridors, the fuel room, and the control room, and then everything else was computer generated. And they talked about it on Doctor Who Unleashed, and they were talking about kind of, how proud they were of kind of being able to show the CGI in real time for the actors to be able to see acting on set, or at least have a placeholder in real time for them to actually watch it, which is fantastic for a TV budget. But at the same time, from a lot of people online talking about it, and we noticed it straight away as well, it's not quite polished. It's not quite there yet. And you'd need to have like a film level budget to make that set look good. This is the thing. Doctor Who has always been small spaceships, small scale, and really kind of like intricate and narrow. And because of that,
quirky British, isn't it? Like a quirky British production, like a Terry Gilliam thing.
Absolutely, you can absolutely get away with the smaller sets. I'm thinking of the different spaceships and space stations they've had on previous sets and stuff like that. Whether it's like the really tiny ones like in Gridlock, where it's literally enough to fit 2 actors in, whether it's a bit more expansive like the Satan Pit kind of episodes where it's a proper base, or even Waters of Mars, which felt like, I know it was a space base, but as far as spaceships concerned, they never really go big. Whereas this one's wide open corridors, wide open areas and stuff like that. And it really kind of shows how limited the budget is for that CGI in the time that it is. It does distract you from the episode. And for the first 10 or 15 minutes of this episode, I was not sold. I was completely out of it. I was like, wasn't a big fan of the cold open, like, unless it goes somewhere in the episode. And then it's just kind of them, the one clip we'd seen from the episode of the TARDIS running away. And then it was just kind of them walking through this CGI spaceship for a bit. And the episode really kicks in with that kind of duality scene, which, with all the rumors going around for the episode, my brain was whirring. My first thought was, well, they're showing 2 different scenes in 2 different rooms with the same people. Is it some kind of time loop they're going to get caught in? Because a lot of the rumors beforehand were, is this going to be a multi-Doctor episode? Is this going to be a TARDIS farm or something like that? There was so many different rumors going around for this episode. But the second you see kind of Catherine Tate's stare when she's actually the alien with the Doctor, and my arms are too long, like it was creepy, and the vibe of the episode changed massively. I think because at that point we then stuck ourselves in practical sets for pretty much the rest of the episode, apart from the ending. It really draws you in, and this episode is going to be kind of, the people who love it are going to be nailing down these points. This has some of the best kind of dialogue, the best conversations, most interesting conversations we've had in a long time in Doctor Who. They go ahead and they address and talk about the previous seasons. They talk about past traumas. And I mean, the performances from both of them are absolutely phenomenal. The scene where David Tennant talks about the flux to the fake Donna is fantastic, because even if you didn't watch the flux, even if you didn't watch kind of the Jodie Whittaker series, you learn that basically half the universe died and it was his fault. He wasn't able to stop it. And actually, realistically, the Doctor was the one who kind of incited it in the first place. And that is a lot of trauma to process. That moment towards the end of the episode where kind of Donna asks the Doctor, like, what happened in those 15 years, and he just turns to her and says, a lot. It shows how much the character has changed and moved on from its previous incarnation. It really delves deep into kind of what it meant to be the Doctor in that time. And it may make people go back and watch the episodes. They may be disappointed by it, but at least they'll be happy that this Doctor is starting to heal from it, or at least recognize kind of, you know, the different flaws of previous carnations. And that is something that Doctor Who has always done well, and it's absolutely done perfectly in these moments.
Yeah, I mean, I don't watch Flux, so here we can get some firsthand. I've not seen anything from Whittaker post the Rosa Parks episode up to seeing the dance,
the Rasputin.
Yeah, that's all, and that's me being honest. I've seen nothing, and I understood there were references made because I'd heard of Flux. I couldn't tell you what it was, but I'd heard of it. I was like, okay, at least they're referencing prior canon. But I just didn't know, and I was saying this about this episode today. Whilst I've slated the VFX and budget at times, this episode is saved by the script, and it's really easy to say. I say saved, that's really unfair term. The performances from the lead actors in today's episode combined with the script were massive, and I think and that's where the strength comes in, and why I'm a bit more chill with that VFX, because the quality that you get that comes from it is really interesting. And as I mentioned with the villain earlier, to know as little as you can about it, to try and figure out what is all this stuff meaning, the slow, the words popping up every so and so, the fact it's a countdown by the end of it. I've really liked the pacing, because the first sort of 25, 30 minutes felt slow, and then it's so rampant at the end. That is literally the story. Like, it is a slow countdown, so the episode should be a slow countdown. And by the end of the episode, I was completely wowed by the idea and the concepts. I liked it. I liked the idea of the Tardis coming in, knowing if the Tardis appears, it's because the person has been saved, etc., etc. It made it more interesting. And then it even had me for a very, very brief moment where I actually thought Donna was going to die.
Same. And I'm wondering, is this going to be brought up in the final episode, the fact that the Doctor couldn't tell the difference?
No, I don't think so. Maybe, but I actually thought, I was like, oh my, they've gone and killed her in the penultimate special. This is horrific. But obviously, there's a great electricity comes in, saves her, and not the other one. But I really liked that. I felt like there's a character in peril, and that doesn't happen often in TV shows and specials, in one-off episodes and whatnot. So that's not an arrogant praise from me, because I thought this happened. But I think that's the quality of that rip, that when you genuinely think that someone's a and Catherine Tate's performance in those final moments as well. I was about to tweet a gif from The Dark Knight when Rachel gets blown up, because I was like, are they going to do it mid-sentence? Like, because you can see the explosion happening away. But I obviously, okay, I don't want to say it's not going to happen in Doctor Who. Some companions apparently have had like horrific ends.
Oh yeah.
So I just thought wow, this is a really intense anniversary. What's going to happen to everyone else now? Paul Bernard Cribbins, what's going to happen? We know he's going to be in it. What's going to happen to her daughter? But obviously he came in and picked her up. But the performances, and listen, we know Tennant's an unbelievable actor. And I'll say this, the most popular Doctor of our generation by a country mile, and to Doctor Who fans, I'm assuming sits in that top 2, top 3 tier. to have him back and still him delivering performance-wise, because it hasn't happened yet of the ones I watched, but I wouldn't be surprised if a past Doctor came back in the future and is very, like, I'm thinking like Michael Keaton in Flash, like the paycheck came on board. Like they wanted to do a couple of new conventions. And I don't think Doctor Who's ever had that Hollywood does. I think everyone that's played the Doctor's had this like immaculate respect for it. I don't think characters have that in other franchises, like where they're that proud of their work. But the Tennant to come back, not chiming in and going for it like he is still the same character, I think testament to David Tennant's performance. As the script, his chemistry with Catherine Tate, I think the two performances today was some of the best I've seen from the pair of them in Doctor Who. Yes, my memory is foggy, but it was really nice to see that it wasn't just here's Catherine Tate doing comedy. Like we got to get a bit more deeper and meaningful stuff about Donna. And again, just that last scene where she's like accepting her fate. I thought fair play. But yeah, the performances. What did you think as well?
I mean, I love them. I absolutely love them. I love them as characters, and the fact that they have changed over the years as well. We get a little tidbit from the Doctor, kind of saying, "Oh, Isaac Newton was kind of hot," and that's something that's obviously been brought on board from the kind of previous incarnations, and everything like that. So you could tell it's a different character, but it's still played by the same actor, and he always smashed it out of the park. And since Doctor Who, he's won, was it the Lifetime Achievement at the BAFTA or something like that? Or he won some kind of special BAFTA or something.
He's probably done, probably TV. I mean, I was thinking this earlier, and I was trying to think of the good Tennant stuff that he's done since, because there's been an awful lot of, Broadchurch.
Mm-hmm. He's done Jessica Jones.
Yeah, what was the Kill Heart? I can't remember, but I think season 1 Jessica Jones was, I'm not going to say the first Doctor Who performance, but that was probably his biggest mainstream performance after Doctor Who. And a lot of people saw a new side to Tennant. Good Omens, he's meant to be incredible in. I think that's more of a comedy drama.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's done the stage for a decade, but he is probably, I'm not going to say the best Doctor in respect to acting, because that's massively unfair to the
Sadly, there is someone who is better than him as far as acting talent is concerned, and that is John Hurt. That is the only one that I would possibly say had a better acting career outside of Doctor Who, because John Hurt was only in like 2 episodes, so it makes sense.
Yeah, I forgot, to be fair, Waters, and to Matt Smith's credit, you forget, and this is something that's really strange. You forget, I mean, because we were younger when Matt Smith was cast as the Doctor, it wasn't a thing for us to think this is the youngest actor to play the Doctor, because he just was the cast as the Doctor. Now you look back at Matt Smith's career, obviously he's done The Crown since, he's doing House of the Dragon at the moment. He is having an unbelievable, he was in Morbius. But he gave us the Anthony. And he was in Town of Salvation, but not Salvation, Genesis. But I think Matt Smith has an insane career, and it's kind of a miracle that he did Doctor Who first, because that made him the household name.
It's he's
gone strength to strength. Yeah, he's gone strength. He's not typecast. He's not played the same witty, charming people. He has played a variety of characters. He's also done the stage work, and it's really interesting, these actors. And again, I'm not saying Matt Smith's going to come back as Doctor Who, but I'd imagine he could also do something similar one day.
He will.
And he'd probably be game for it. Yeah.
I think that every single Doctor who is still currently alive will always keep the door open to coming back. The only one who we weren't sure about was Eccleston, but
I think now it's, can you get Capaldi?
There's a chance.
I think you got more chance at Eccleston tomorrow than Capaldi tomorrow.
I feel like, Capaldi's too recent from his run. I feel like bringing Capaldi back will be maybe next anniversary.
It'll be T. Davies. It'll be Russell T. Davies as well. I think he'll do it for the screen run. And it is really interesting. And I like that Doctor Who has been very welcome to its history. Like, from my side perspective, when they've had other doctors come back and they're not de-aging them, they like just carry on as you are.
Yeah.
Because they know its audience wants to see that.
They're not there to see the Doctor as a younger person. They're there to see the actor.
And that's why it differs. Whereas with Star Wars, you're never going to win. There's always going to be someone saying we want to recast. There's always going to be someone saying we don't want to recast. And every series, every show, everything can separate differently. And what I like about Doctor Who, and going back to say, you can bring back old companions. You can bring back Doctors. Now, the last thing I want is after Ncuti Gatwa, the next Doctor to be Peter Capaldi again. I mean, like, don't just keep regenerating into the same actor.
No.
But isn't it really cool they've done it once, and who knows what could happen in the future? So I'm really intrigued by a lot of what they did. But if I want to talk about something I didn't expect to see today, the return of Bernard Cribbins as Wilf.
Yeah.
I don't know the behind the scenes. I know you'll say a bit more than me. I thought when we'd get to him, it would be this like humongous build of we're going to the home, we're going to visit him. Here's this big triumphant return. I'm trying to think of a comparison, but I can't. But I love the fact like he's there and waiting at the TARDIS, and it just hit you like an emotional brick. Obviously, knowing he's passed away now makes it more emotional, and I think that also shows testament to his legacy in Doctor Who as a relative of a companion compared to, you know, I mean, I know he was a companion, but by default, he was not like a main companion for the Doctor in his run. What he was able to, and I don't say for the age he was doing that, but we haven't really had an elder in that role in our lifetimes, I don't think, if that's fair to say. I know John Bishop was he's in his 50s, and they would deem that like an elder companion, but it was a great moment, and then it sets up other stuff. And I was surprised to get it in episode 2, just because I assumed it'd be episode 1 or episode 3, not in the middle, but here we are.
Same with Bradley Walsh playing Graham as well, a slightly older companion, and they do tend to work. But Sir Bernard Cribbins was, I mean, we talked about it in our Doctor Who discussion, one of our favourite companions, even if it was for, you know, a few episodes. You know, he first showed up in 2007, all the way back, just as a character on the street who gets introduced, and they did all of that setup all the way through. I was on the verge of tears. I really was. I was proper welling up, and even when looking at the Doctor Who Unleashed afterwards, when they talked about it and said we tried to film more scenes, but sadly this was the only scene we were able to film with him. God, that got to me, and I'm even choking up now. Like he is a fantastic actor, and he brought so much to the role, and he brought heart to the role. He gave us some of the best Doctor Who moments from Tennant's run. Yeah. And he wasn't even in Tennant's run for a long time. I will always go back to that final episode of He Will Knock 4 times, and that moment, or even the speech of like David Tennant's speech of, you know, I'd be proud if you were my dad, kind of, you know, it gets you so well and so emotional. And that's all brought forward by this character who, you know, loves the idea of going off and exploring in space and is happy that, you know, his granddaughter is experiencing that. It's such a lovely story, and it is such a shame that, you know, he wasn't able to complete his character run and have more time in these specials as his final farewell. But I'm so glad they're able to bring him back just for this one moment, because him not being in Doctor Who, him not being there with Donna would be an absolute crying shame. So absolutely rest in peace, you know, Sir Bernard Cribbins. You did such a fantastic role. You know, you gave so much to the community, and, you know, I don't think there's a single person in the Doctor Who universe who doesn't love you. So, yeah.
Yeah, we've got the comment by Dave as well saying it's a real shame it was only he was able to film before he passed away. And this, even when the leaks started coming through last year, you know, when it's shot on location in Camden, everyone saw it. And that was before Donna came back, I believe. Bernard Cribbins was seen on set, and it was the wheelchair sequence that we saw in it. So it was nice to get that moment. Obviously, we'll find out next week with what could happen. I mean, and this is kind of...
We kind of know next week, though, don't we? It's like the one episode that's been leaked the most out of all of them so far.
Yeah, I mean, we say the leaks. We know that it's Neil Patrick Harris. We know he was announced to play is it the Toy Master's his name?
The
Toy Maker.
So the Celestial Toy Maker appeared with the first Doctor in one story. Hasn't appeared since. He was meant to appear in a story with Sylvester McCoy called The Nightmare Fair, which actually I think they've turned into a Big Finish series, which is meant to be very good. But basically, the Toy Maker is a immortal celestial being who gets fun from the universe by torturing, you know, the best of the universe, basically. So he's obviously coming back to torture the Doctor because, you know, last time the Doctor outwitted him and he's been away for such a long time. But it's absolutely fascinating. We've known so much about this next episode for a long time. We actually get a trailer with this episode, unlike the last episode, which they wanted to keep under wraps. We know it's a regeneration episode, especially now that they've shown in the trailer that Ncuti will be in the TARDIS at the end of the episode. We see David Tennant with the kind of time vortex energy glowing out of him, so we know he's going to regenerate in this. There is, or at least we're going to get a regeneration sequence, if that makes sense. It's very interesting. There is so much information about this episode out there. I'm excited for it just because regeneration stories tend to be the best. They always seem to be like really, really highly rated. People tend to love them. They've given some of the best from Classic Who, some of the best from New Who as well. So it'll be absolutely fascinating to see that. Neil Patrick Harris looks like a really fun, campy villain. And I'll be perfectly honest, in the hands of Russell T Davies, who is a campy writer for Doctor Who, it's going to be just absolute perfection. We get a little bit of a teaser at the end of the episode for setting up with the world turning to violence. We know the episode's called The Giggle. There are so many details out there about this episode. There's not really much speculation going on into this episode. The only speculation is kind of, what happens after the episode is over. What's going to happen moving on with Ncuti? How is it going to work out? How are we going to end the episode? How is it going to lead on to the Christmas special? Now that more details being released about that, we know exactly when it's happening, who's going to be in it, what even the plot's going to be. The Doctor fighting the Goblin King, apparently. So yeah, there's a lot of speculation, but weirdly enough, it's not for next episode. It's probably for the episode after, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think because they've done a bit of details this week about the Christmas special as well. There's a couple of photos that have now come out, a little bit about Ruby, who's going to be the new companion moving forward, and obviously knowing they've shot the whole series, it still gives me that security that even though I'm a bit mixed on today's episode, I'm still very much looking forward to next week. I'm looking forward to the new series and seeing some consistency with the actual scheduling of a show, not the actual episodes, hopefully the episodes too. But it's one of them where I'm excited. As Neil Patrick Harris, again, someone's going to prove me wrong straight away, but in my head, I don't think there's been a lot of American villains in like actual, like, I don't say A-lister, but like Neil Patrick Harris, but like
we haven't had many A-lister villains. I mean,
that's
the biggest...
why I'm thinking. Like, I'm not thinking like Kylie Minogue, whatever it was in Titanic.
Well, she was off the top of my head. Here's the thing: most of the villains are usually, British rising stars. Sometimes you snag onto one that's like, well, she was already kind of famous and she's just gone on and done more, which is Olivia Colman, who was, dare I say, wasted in an episode. Good episode, good villain, but Christ, like, she's now an Oscar-winning actress. Like, Harold is like, one of the great actors of our generation, and yet,
and this is like an established not just actor, but theatre, stage, film, TV. Neil Patrick Harris, somebody that most people will recognise, taking on, and it's not like Neil Patrick Harris is going to be playing. Oh God, I forgot his name. Barney from How I Met Your Mother, is he? It's going to be something wildly different. And I think that's really
like
exciting.
A horrible sing-along blog.
But it's like, it's not an actor if you were going to say cast an A-list actor in Doctor Who, no one's going to say Neil Patrick Harris because everyone's going to jump to like elite names. But the moment someone says Neil Patrick Harris, everyone sits and says, that's going to work.
Perfect casting.
Yeah, and that's really exciting. And obviously, we know he's over the poster. They've put him all over marketing. They did the big announcement for him. I think it'll be great. And it'll be really great. Given that, the villain of the first episode has been a creature, the second one, Tennant himself, we'll get to see him face off with another actor now, which I think is going to be great as well, which this trilogy of specials will separate to a degree. And we have a difference in variety. So I'm really excited for this. And I've been excited for him since they've announced it. And I think it could have the potential to be one of the best castings in, I don't say modern Who, it's since I've watched Doctor Who. I'm really trying to think of the not that you need big names, but like I think of like again the Titanic one. Duke from Tracy P could turn up.
Yeah, in Jodie Whittaker's run, we had Mark Addy come in,
I wouldn't say he's a household name. People might know he's Robert Baratheon or know him from other stuff, but I think that's exciting. And as well, the fact it's an American one, that's a really random thing. People love Doctor Who's British and quirky, but I think he's going to nail it, and I'm excited to see what Neil Patrick Harris does. And again, I think Tennant's had great chemistry throughout, and I think Catherine Tate's got potential if she gets scenes with him as well. I think there could be some really, really interesting one-to-one moments next week. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, exactly. And now we kind of have the full spell out of the specials. So we've had the one that was adapted from an outsourced Doctor Who material, so from the comics, which was interesting. We have the completely individual episode that was today, the Wild Blue Yonder, which is a completely original idea, completely original monster. And now we're going back to a classic villain with a regeneration story. So they've done a very good spread with this one. And, it'd be very interesting to see how next episode goes. It'd be very interesting to see how many people tune in because, regeneration episodes tend to draw in a bigger audience anyway. But once again, I mean, we've given our thoughts on this episode. We want to hear your thoughts down below. So please comment along. What did you think of Wild Blue Yonder? We've had some very mixed opinions here. I like a lot of elements of it. I wasn't a big fan of the CGI. George is still unsure, and I know that a lot of people online are very split between those two different opinions. We want to hear your opinions. Of course, we want to create a discussion as much as possible. So talk anything Who in here. Go watch our new Who kind of almost retrospective kind of thing discussion about all of the things from kind of the revival era from 2005 onwards, as it's going to be coming to a close after the next episode. We're on to a brand new era of Doctor Who after next Saturday's episode. So this will be kind of it. Tell us what you think about the entire thing. Tell us what you think about this episode. Tell us what you think about the future, what is coming up. Please comment below. We love to create a discussion on here. And also go and follow us on the social medias, because you'll be able to find all of our latest videos coming out. We've garnered a bit of consistency at the moment, haven't we? We've got our Film for the Weekends coming out every single Friday. You'll see that on all of our socials and also on the channel. We've also got these Doctor Who episodes coming out on the Saturday. The final one next week, 9 p.m. British time. And what else do we have coming up on the channel, George?
Okay, Wonka comes out next week. So for the Timothy Chalamet fans, there will be a review on the channel. I keep looking down at this. I bought this. There's a new Godzilla film coming out, and I finally pulled the trigger on the Criterion box set. Black Friday deal, an actual decent Black Friday deal. So Godzilla -1, its UK release is the 15th. It came out yesterday in America, which is fucking annoying. There's previews on the 11th of December at Cineworld in the UK for anyone who wants to watch it, but not previews in IMAX. Yeah, it's going to get released in IMAX. So do you want to watch a Godzilla film in IMAX, or do you want to watch it in normal? So I don't know what my choice will be, but it has a budget of $15 million, I have just found out.
But it looks incredible.
Exactly. So I'm hearing magnificent stuff. I'm going to go watch some old Godzilla films across the next couple of weeks. I've heard that I still need to watch Shin Godzilla, which is recent, but yeah, there's going to be a few new releases. We're heading into Oscar season. There's some films that we'll catch up on. We did our monthly stream last week, and of course, then we're heading into the new year with a lot of new things. Obviously, Doctor Who's going to have a Christmas special. There'll be a few more videos that we'll announce here and there, but it's going to be a busy time. We think next year.
Yes,
schedule's not looking busy for the first half, but we did just get
really busy.
Wow! Today we've had a trailer for Fallout, which looks amazing.
Yeah, it looks amazing.
The Boys,
which looks great.
House of the Dragon,
which looks amazing.
Mad Max trailers. CCXP is happening Thursday. I don't know what that is. So it's basically trailer heaven for a week. So we're getting reminders that there's big stuff coming next year, and I'm sure we haven't had the chat yet, but I'm sure there will be stuff for Fallout as we will also do a lot of the other TV shows we like to do. So we do TV on the channel. We love getting people on for those as well. But yes, Doctor Who, we're still new to it as well. So do let us know your thoughts on these episodes and all of that sort of stuff. But film-wise, I literally can't think of anything else but Wonka and Godzilla at the moment.
Excellent. Well, thank you ever so much for everyone tuning in today, also tuning in the future. Once again, please like, subscribe, do all of that stuff. Put your comments down below, and we will see you on our final Doctor Who discussion of the specials next Saturday at 9 p.m. Thank you ever so much, and I'll see you next time.